I want you to know that you are really leading this profession. So my hats are off to you.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, these are the most ambitious, visionary people in our field. I know when I started coaching people around 2005, I mean, the biggest vision most people had was to get a full practice. And I rarely heard anything else than that. You know, I have 15 and I want to get 30, or I have 5 and I want to get 40. And what a difference it's been in the years recently since then.
Well, I know that you started this. What year did you start your group practice, Joe?
My group practice, 1999.
Okay, great. So I started mine in 2013. And I remember the reason I started mine was I was coaching people who had group practices and I didn't have one. And I started to look at their numbers when we started doing their profit and loss reviews. Yeah. And I thought, this just might be something I want to take a look at.
Yeah.
So very smart. So since do we want to respect the people that have gotten on? Do we want to go ahead?
Yeah, it's about 1 after the hour. So why don't we get started?
Okay, great.
So welcome everyone to our webinar today. And again, how to create a $1 million group practice. I'm Joe Bavonese.
Hi, and I'm Casey Truffo.
And we're very excited to be here today, sharing what we have learned in our own group practices, as well as coaching many, many, many other people who run group practices.
Yeah, so you're here and maybe you don't know a lot about us. So we're going to share a little bit about that. There we go.
All right. So I'm a psychologist in Michigan, and I run a outpatient psychotherapy practice called Relationship Institute. We have 3 separate locations in southeastern Michigan and have currently 26 therapists who work in our practice. And I'm also the director of Uncommon Practices that has been helping therapists create their ideal practice since 2005.
And that's just amazing to me. And I'm Casey Truffo, BeAWealthyTherapist.net. We've been helping therapists build their businesses since 2004. And I'm also the owner-director of the Relationship Center in Orange County. And it's between the two of us, Joe and I were counting up earlier, and we've had 25 years of experience coaching therapists. So we're sitting here having done what you want to do or what you are doing, and we want to help you do it even better, faster, and more efficiently, more effectively, and with more fun.
Yeah, Casey, I think we can safely say we've heard every possible question or challenge that people have had in this field.
No kidding.
So together, we were figuring we've coached either individually or in groups over 8,000 therapists in the last 13 years or so, including over 300 group practice owners. And we both currently run a group practice. So we're not armchair quarterbacks. We're in the trenches. We know exactly what this is like. We do it every day.
And if you've run into a problem, chances are we've run into it as well. And also, one of the things that we found is that a lot of therapists who are solo practitioners, we don't have the extra money for time off, for vacations, for maternity leave. And there really is a cap on your income when you're a solo practitioner. So what we want to do is look at different ways. And I know that I started a book called Beyond One-to-One Sessions a few years ago, and I interviewed many therapists, maybe 13 therapists, who were making money in different ways. And the only thing I found, Joe, the only way I knew to really make money was through group practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember the day that and the week that I first had a full solo practice, and I had been gearing up for that and studying business, and I was so excited, and I thought I had reached the promised land, and then I got a leaky roof, and I thought, oh, that's okay. And then another thing broke, and then one of my kids had to go to the doctor, and suddenly I was like, oh my God, this isn't enough money. It was such a shock. I was in such denial that just having a full 30 or 35 people a week wasn't enough. And it was pretty depressing, but that's when I hired a business coach and started to explore exactly what you said. Are there other ways? Are there other ways to generate more revenue other than this 1 hour, as you call it, the butt in the chair, for 1 unit of money? And that's when I ended up deciding that group practice was really the way to go. And what I've learned in the years since then, after making a lot of mistakes, because back then when I started my group practice in 1999, there were no mentors, there was no webinar like this, there were no webinars at all, obviously. But what I've learned is, when you do it right and when you follow the 10 principles that we're going to discuss today, when all the cylinders are firing smoothly, you can really bring in a pretty nice amount of what I would call relatively passive income. We talk around this phrase passive income a lot. It's not 100% passive, and it's not even close to that in the beginning, but it's like a plane taking off in a storm. And when you get above the clouds and it does smooth out, it can become much more passive than in the beginning.
Completely agree with you. And in the last 2 years, we both have seen a number of group practices that are bringing in more than $1 million in annual revenue. And I think, I wrote this in an email recently. When I started Be a Wealthy Therapist, people made fun of me, the fact that a therapist could actually be wealthy. And now here we are watching casual people, meaning everyday therapists who have an entrepreneurial spirit and are ready to get down there and generate it. And if you know the formula, it's really not that hard. There is work involved, obviously, but there is a system that you can follow and you can make this work. And that's why we're here with you today.
Yeah, it's amazing, Casey, how many people just in the last 2 to 3 years, like we said, I hate to say it's been commonplace, but I'm running into so many people now who are generating over $1 million in revenue, or they're at 700,000 or 800,000, and they're predicting they'll be at $1 million next year or the year after. That it just blows my mind, because it just never even used to be on the radar 5 to 7 years ago. You just never heard people talk about it, and now there's just people in every state of the United States and quite a few places in Canada that I know of, and there may be people in other countries. But so the bottom line is $1 million in revenue for a mental health practice is possible and realistic for group practice owners. So just really let that sink in. This is not pie in the sky. We're not about hype. We're telling you the facts, the reality of what we see and what we talk to every day. It's very realistic and very possible to make over $1 million a year in a profession that was once thought to only be for poor people serving, the needy. So it's unbelievable.
And that's why we're here today, to share with you the recipe that we know, the 10 steps that we know. Now, I know if you're listening to this and maybe you started your group practice and you have 1 or 2 people and you're struggling a little bit, and maybe you're around that, $150, $250, $250,000 in revenue, and you're thinking, wow, I thought I was doing pretty good. Well, you are. Okay, let's not, say that you're not doing well. But I'm guessing that if you had more, it would be even more fun. We always say the more money you have, the more money you have to share and to spare. And so the more money that you have, you're also helping more people in your community.
Right.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you said that, Casey, because someone wrote me an email who got a response to an email I wrote about this webinar, and they said basically that this went against the grain of why they're in the profession, just to make money. And I said, we're not talking about just making money. We're also talking about serving 10, 20, 30 times as many people in your community as you could possibly do on your own. So there's a huge service component to this as well, that sometimes gets lost in the numbers, but I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I know that we looked at our numbers early on in the first couple of years, and we had served, I think, over 350 people. And all of a sudden it occurred to me that I never could have seen 300, that many people by myself in that short a time. And the more therapists we bring in, that number can double, that number can triple. So this is really about win-win for everybody. The client wins, the group practice owner wins, and the associate clinician wins, because there's somebody who may not want to go out and have all the expense and effort of building their own practice. So got a lot of great win-win-win opportunities here. Oops. So today we want to talk to you about the 10 key steps that we know that can work.
And these 10 factors we're going to talk about assume that you're not living in a rural area, which is sparsely populated, So I want to be realistic about this, but that you live in a moderately populated area. We've known $1 million practices in cities as small as 150,000 up to major metropolitan areas, of millions. But if you live in a small rural area of 20 or 40,000 people, this is probably not realistic for you. But if you live in at least 150,000 population or more, this is definitely realistic.
And even if you lived in a population of 50, maybe you could still do this and grow, to 250,000. It might not be 1 million, but you still could grow by hiring additional clinicians. So, we got lots of alternatives there.
Right. And so the principles we're going to talk about now, these 10 ingredients, you can apply these if you are just starting a group practice but don't have anybody yet working for you, whether you have a few associates working for you or whether you have a full-blown large group practice. The same principles will work at whatever scale you're at, and you can continue to grow it from this point on.
Absolutely. So let's start with number 1, Joe. Go ahead.
All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is creating a clear vision for your group practice in terms of 2 things: the services you're offering into the community and the numbers, the financial goals, the goals for number of sessions that you have. And we found that it's really important to do both of these, because I've coached people, Casey, that just said, well, I just want to make $400,000 a year. And they had no sense of service. They had no sense of passion for the work. And it was empty emotionally, and it didn't work. And similarly, I've had people that were incredibly passionate about their clinical work, but totally unable to formulate goals in terms of numbers and money and sessions. And similarly, that didn't seem to work. So it seems like it's really important that you put attention on both of these to create a foundation for a successful group practice.
And I think that's so powerful. And I want to add to that also, what is the experience you want for your client? Okay. So do you want to have a large place where it's hustle and bustle and a lot of people coming in and you can serve maybe like lower fee clients? Do you want that to have, or do you want like a VIP, very customer centered? What is the experience you want for your clients? What are your personal values, and how does that translate to your experience? Because once you know that, you can look at and how do I deliver that? What menu of services do I do that? And then how much do I charge? So lots of good things here, but number 1, have that clear vision. Okay, so moving on to number 2. I know you love talking about this one.
Yeah, I do. The crucial role of branding and having a niche in creating a successful group practice. It's much more difficult to be a generalist in a group practice to get to the level of 7 figures that we're talking about. We want you to be known as having expertise in one or more areas, and that can be a general area, like my practice is relationships, and under that umbrella we work with couples, we work with singles, we work with parents, we work with kids, we work with families, but it's all about relationships, and that's what we became known for in the community. So having that really focused niche and brand is very powerful, because it gets the company becoming well-known in the community, instead of you, the practice owner, being the star, which it usually is in the beginning. But you want the practice itself to generate the reputation, generate the principles that lead to consistent referrals over time.
I think that's so important. And one of the things I know that probably a lot of you have not done this, but some group practice owners have made the mistake of saying, okay, maybe I work with couples, but one time somebody called up asking if we did autism. So I'm going to hire somebody that's an autistic therapist. Oh, another time I got a call for eating disorders. And now all of a sudden you have 3 quite different specialties. That's going to be harder for you to market your center. And if somebody wants to come in and see the eating disorder specialist and you only have one of them and that person can't come on that day, you're now losing a client that you spent a lot of money probably to get. So this is where having a niche with specialties that make sense together, like yours, you said couples, parents, families, kids, those go together. One lady I knew one time did adolescence and sex therapy. And the problem is that that they didn't quite go together. And it made adolescent parents nervous when they saw she did sex therapy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and Casey, this is even more important if you're out of network and you're fee for service, because again, people will pay for expertise. They won't pay if they perceive you as, run of the mill, like somebody else in town. But if they feel like you have a higher level of expertise and specialization, then they're willing to pay a higher fee out of pocket.
we just got a call from a couple in Canada who is coming down to Orange County for 5 weeks on vacation, and they want to do 10 sessions of premarital counseling. Okay. And
Cool.
that came from us talking about premarital as one of our specialties.
Nice.
So, yeah. Okay, so moving on to principle number 3. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, this is something you and I are both passionate about: creating a CEO dashboard of key metrics that you review on a regular basis. And Casey's done some brilliant work in this area, creating this concept of a CEO dashboard. But the idea of measuring a lot of things that are going on in your practice very precisely and reviewing it on a regular basis is a core principle of a successful group practice. Every time I do a lecture around the country on private practice or group practice, I ask these kind of questions. And what happens? Almost nobody knows any of these numbers. So we're really fanatical about and helping people develop a way to measure things and review them on a regular basis.
I think that's so important because often we live on fear, right? All of a sudden something happened. Why is my income this month? Well, if you have a set of metrics that you can look at different time periods, if you can look at different calls, number of calls, if you can look at what your conversion rate is, has your conversion gone down? Has the attrition gone up? When you can look at these metrics, then you have the next action that you need to take to better the system. And so many people that I've worked with, and I know, Joe, you too, they get scared because something feels off, but they have nothing to compare it to. Once they compare it to, they can relax.
Yeah, what I found is having the numbers is so helpful to keep you rationally engaged, because when things are going well, you think they're doing better than they are. And when things are going badly, you think they're much worse than they are. So having these numbers to compare and to keep track of every month or every quarter, every year, really helps you stay on track rationally for what's really going on in the practice.
Perfect. So if you're not doing that, that's a huge takeaway from today. Okay, so tip number 4. Joe, this is one of your hot buttons and one of the things that you're such an expert at. You want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. And it's about marketing, engaging in consistent, efficient, state-of-the-art marketing so you remain top of mind to potential clients and referral sources. And of course, the 2 main areas where this comes in would be internet marketing and community networking, community marketing. I focused my practice on internet marketing. We've been averaging this year 170 new intakes a month, of which 120 are internet based. And that's gone up like pretty much every year since the internet became something in our lives. But that's something I focused a lot on. I know other people that have created very successful group practices by focusing on community marketing. So, but you can't ignore marketing, because I've seen more group practices stall at a certain level simply because they're not getting enough referrals. And you have to get, to keep growing, you have to keep getting more clients calling you. So.
And sometimes when you are in a smaller area, like a less populated area, you can find that maybe you're doing awesome internet marketing and you're at the top of all of the searches and you've got good AdWords, you've got good SEO, but you might have maxed out on the number of people that are calling you. And that's where we need to get out into the community and make sure the referral sources know who we are. And that I find is so important, because so many therapists, forgive me, I'm going to be judgmental, but as an introvert, I'd like to hide behind my computer, right? I would like to just stay here and not have to think about getting out into the community. But in doing that, the community has lost places to refer to. So, you said to me one time, if you do something that other people are afraid of doing, your practice is going to skyrocket. And I really take that to heart.
Right.
Okay, good. All right. So, So then the next one, that was principle number 4. Principle number 5, find, hire, and mentor and manage the right people, both clinical people and admin people. And this right here is probably the tip that or the problem that I hear most group practice owners struggling with is that they make a few mistakes in hiring and they get down on themselves. But it's really important to have a process for how you look for people, a process for how you interview people, certainly a process for mentoring and managing. And so I think that's super important. And you want to talk more, because I know you love to talk about the admin part too, right?
Yeah, I think I was always somebody who didn't want to spend money on admin because I was cheap, and I said, I don't want to pay somebody who's not bringing in any money, so I tried to do that myself, and it quickly became overwhelming. And then I'd hire somebody for admin for maybe 4 hours a week. And anyway, to make a long story short, now I have 5 admin people who are a fantastic team, and I've been able to delegate a lot of almost the entire running of the practice to them. But again, it's important that you find the right people, that they work well together, both the clinical staff and the admin staff, and you know how to manage them, which includes when to fire people. One of the ugly things people don't like to talk about is sometimes people don't work out. And as caring, compassionate therapists, we almost always wait too long to get rid of people like that. And that's one of the skills you want to develop as a boss, as a manager, is how to manage and evaluate your staff and how well they're working out or not.
So first, to know what to track, to know how well they're doing or not doing. And then from there, how to mentor them. Like, is this a solvable problem? Okay. And then if it's not a solvable problem, it's how to get rid of them and when. So super important, and something that many of us have learned kind of in the trenches as we went along. So if you're struggling with this, know that you'll probably make some mistakes. We all have. And the important thing is to learn and to try to hang out with other people who understand how to do this. And that's one thing I just wanted to say before we move on. We are going to tell you later, we see some questions coming in the chat. We are going to tell you later about our upcoming year-long program, about how to work with Joe and me and really understand and learn and go deep on these 10 principles and get your questions answered so that we can hopefully double your practice if that's what you're looking to do. So we're going to tell you more about that in a minute, but some people are asking about the link. If you go to beawealthytherapist.net/AAC for advanced adding clinicians, don't go there now. Wait till after the webinar, but because we have some more stuff to share with you on some bonuses and stuff that you'll want to know. But the point is that hang out with people who know how to do it. If it's not us, hang out with somebody who really knows how to find, hire, mentor, and manage the right people. You're going to save yourself so much time and feel so much better about your business. Okay, number 6. Joe?
Yeah, this is a good one. Develop a compensation model that you as the owner actually end up with some profit. One of the biggest mistakes we've seen in coaching people is that, again, as caring, compassionate therapists, and we like people to like us, a little bit of codependency thrown in, that we often pay people too much in terms of generating profit. I work with so many people who say, I'm working so many hours and I've got 5 or 7 or 8 therapists working for me. My revenue is 500,000 and my profit is nothing or almost nothing. And it doesn't make sense. And it often comes down to this, that the compensation model that you started with is not set up to generate profit first. It's set up to whatever's left over is the profit. And that's totally backwards from the way that Casey and I teach people to set it up.
Exactly. Because here's the thing, your associates ought to be paying for the operating expenses for your business. And so what happens a lot of times is that if I'm a clinician, I'm a solo practitioner, and I'm by myself, I have to pay for my own operating expenses. Then I think I'm going to bring somebody in, and whatever they earn is extra. It's like gravy. Right? But the point of a group practice is that they be able to pay the operating expenses so that you can choose how much you want to see clients or not. And some people mess up that priority. So something that is both a thinking problem and a doing problem, as I like to say, we need to revision what that group practice is about and what that money coming in is, and then really understand our numbers and then develop the compensation model so that you have the profit, because you need profit. Profit is a good thing. Why do you need profit? If you ever want to apply for a business loan, you need to show you're making some profit. If you ever want to sell your business, you want to show you have some good profit. Profit is the entrepreneur's reward for starting a business and not just taking a paycheck. So you can dividend yourself. There's lots of stuff you can do with profit. Save it for expansion, but you don't want to be working so that your associates have a place to come and work. And that's what happens accidentally with some people.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, I get passionate about that one. Okay, number 7. Go ahead, Joe. This is the one you get passionate about.
I do. This is about systems. You want to develop efficient, duplicatable systems that you can train your staff to do to tremendously reduce your feelings of overwhelm and make managing the practice so much easier. And a lot of people have found the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber a good model for how to do this. And then there's Work the System is another good book by Sam Carpenter. But the idea here is if you can create a system that reliably can be repeated and can be trained and taught to any new staff, things will run smoothly. If you do things chaotically, randomly, or you do different things for different therapists or different clients, you're going to make your life much, much more stressful and overwhelming, and things will break down on a regular basis. So the ability to identify the need for systems and then develop the systems in all the different areas of your practice is crucial to having a smooth running group practice.
And I think there's somewhere about 5 or 7 that we all should have, and we all should have documented. And one of the things I also find that's really important with having not only efficient, duplicatable systems, but documented. A lot of times people will bring in an admin person and they'll say, I don't know, just sort of answer the phones and schedule people. And then the admin makes their own procedures, which may or may not be with the in mind of what's best for the practice. And then if for some reason that admin person leaves, the whole practice is up in sort of confusion because they don't have the right system. So what you want to do is develop your systems yourself, document them yourself. And then when you bring somebody else on, you can teach them how you want it done. So then if you have 5 or so like Joe does, they're all doing it similarly. It's not like somebody's doing it off in a very different way. Anything else you want to say on that?
No, that's about it.
Okay, here we go. Number 8, create the proper culture to maintain a happy, emotionally engaged staff.
So this again is, I think, a really important part of having group practice, because one of the things that I was happy to discover after getting to a certain size was that it was fun to come to work. There's actually people there instead of sitting by myself all day. And a certain culture started to evolve out of this group of people that I was hanging out with every day. And then I realized I can also shape some of the values of this culture. And so there's specific things you can do, because all therapists crave community. Many therapists are isolated and lonely and wanting and needing community. So there's things you can do to facilitate a sense of the group identity, the group consciousness, that makes it more fun to go to work, but it also keeps people more engaged and they want to stay working with you because they're getting something in addition to working as a therapist and making money, but they also are part of something larger than themselves.
And this goes back to one of the things we talked about before when I said that I think the visionary's job is to come up with, what is the vision for this practice? And part of that vision is, what is the culture that I want? Once you know the experience you want for the client, and once you know the experience you want for your clinicians, you can then do what we call hire for culture, okay? So if you know that what you want is a lot of people that are very affiliation related, they love hanging out together, then you know who to hire. Zappos always says, somebody asks, why are the people here so happy? And they said, oh, we hire happy people, that's why. So it's like, what is the culture that you want, and then hire for that. And a lot of times we get this sort of limited thinking where we think there's not enough therapists. And so, I just got to take whoever applies. No, hire for culture and then manage that culture. And I know that it's harder if you've purchased a practice. We've worked with some people that have purchased practice and the culture is already there. If that's your case, then you need some very specific how to transition from one culture to another. But a super important point. We just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that point. Okay. All right. So point number 9, Joe.
Okay, this is one I'm very passionate about, and this is basically about having backups, or what I call redundancy, people, systems, and technology whenever you can. And I remember, Casey, when I had my first really good admin person, and she was fantastic. And her daughter and she was taking care of a whole bunch of stuff, answering the phone, doing billing, and a bunch of stuff. And then her daughter got sick, and she was out for 4 days. And my life became hell and chaos. I was still seeing about 25 clients a week, trying to answer all these phone calls that were coming in, trying to print out receipts, make copies of charts. It was just insane. And then I suddenly realized that I'm totally dependent on this one person, and it's not a good idea. So I immediately hired a part-time person to work with her, who was trained to do a lot of the same things. And ever since then, I've taken that same lesson. So now I have 3 ways to get on the internet, because the internet breaks down, and then what happens? Everything comes to a halt. I have 2 different phone systems in case one doesn't work, because that happens also. And then you're screwed. If you don't have a way to call people, they can't call you. I have backups for answering the phone, for billing, for insurance verification, for database entry, for marketing, etc. And so by doing that, I found my life has gotten so much less stressful and so much smoother by having backup and redundancy in all these different areas of my practice.
Yeah, so important. They always say there's only 2 kinds of people in the world, those who have had a hard drive crash and those who are going to have a hard drive crash. So that's why backup is so important. And It's the same in your place. You'll have somebody who will walk in one day and, if they're keeping paper notes at home or something like that, and all of a sudden they walk in and they say, I'm done and I'm not going to be working here anymore as a therapist. Well, what are you going to do now? If you have a practice management system, make sure you have one where you can export data so that you have it somewhere locally in the event that, something bad happens. So this is all real important. And I love the idea that you put this in here.
Yeah, I just think it's very important. I just think, again, if you take a conscious look at it, like you just said about backups, I know people that have lost, it's so easy to make backups today in your computer files. And yet I know people that have lost some really important data. So I've been, ever since, I actually lost my doctoral dissertation on a hard drive crash on a Mac I had back, one of those little black and white Macs in the late 80s. And so ever since then, I've been a fanatic about backups. But nowadays with the cloud, backing up is so easy, and so many ways to do it very inexpensively. So, but I realize you can't always afford to have redundancy and backups, but I'm just saying, as soon as you can, try to incorporate that, because it will make your life so much easier. Casey, we hear about this overwhelm constantly, and I think this is one of the easiest and best ways, to reduce overwhelm and make your life less stressful.
And that's why I was saying also, at least if you have your systems documented, if you can't afford to have multiple people working there right now in terms of admin, if you've got your stuff documented and how you do stuff, when you bring another person in, you have documentation on your systems and you can get them going much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So moving on to our principle number 10. And this is where we've both been. You, man, doing it back a long, long time ago, starting your group practice, nobody around to help you. You have paved the way for many of us, but I know that it's really hard. And I wrote about this recently too. It's paradoxical. You would think that having a group practice, you would be less lonely than being in a solo practice. Right. But because you can't sit down and have frank discussions about finances and worries and marketing with your clinicians as you would like to, in fact, you have to be their boss, can make you feel even lonelier. And a lot of times, you and I are lucky in that we have spouses involved in our businesses. A lot of people don't have that, and their spouses are just saying, stop. I don't want to hear anything more about it. So find people that are doing what you want to do and hopefully are even more successful than you are, so that you can keep moving up that rung, keep finding the things that are behind you. Virginia Satir says, we can't see the back of our own hair. And a lot of times our group practices aren't growing because we have a limiting belief, or we have some knowledge that's not right. On Facebook, some guy was putting in a compensation model that for group practices that I knew on both coasts was not going to work. And so people were taking this as gospel. So it might have worked where he was, and it certainly worked for him. But, you and I know that not all compensation models are perfect for everybody. So find people that are doing it that are much more successful than you, who have a track records of helping a lot of people. And that's why we're here. So if not us, then find somebody who can do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to add to this, Casey, because I think it's so crucial that running a group practice is challenging on so many different levels, and so many more levels than just being a solo therapist is. And it's easy to burn out your spouse or other people who don't want to hear it after a while. I remember I was telling you the first time I did a live event with group practice owners, we talked for like 18 straight hours, and nobody wanted to go to bed. And it was just like, and everybody was saying, wow, this is so cool. I don't have to stop talking about it. But there's such a hunger for support, and there's so many different things that can happen. And some of them are somewhat bizarre, and you just have to be prepared for anything. But yeah, if you don't have support, it's going to be very difficult to manage the ups and downs, and some things can happen pretty dramatically in a group practice. And it really helps to have support from people that understand, that people have been there, that people are walking in your shoes. And I think when you do have that support, and you do have somebody to turn to when these things happen, it makes such a difference to, again, keep your focus, keep your perspective, don't get into all or nothing thinking, and it really helps you stay on track and deal with whatever comes along, in a constructive way.
Right. Excellent. So let's summarize a little bit here.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay, here we go. You can tell I'm PowerPoint 101 here.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is, because we've coached so many people with group practices, that we haven't found anybody who's really been able to get to $1 million who hasn't done all of these principles well. Right. It's not like you can do half of them or something, and you still may get to a couple 100,000 in revenue if you do half or 2/3 of these. But if you really want to get to $1 million, and by the way, we've met people that are 2, 3, 4 million. 1 million isn't the end point.
No.
So, but to get to those points and continue to grow, you really have to do all 10 of these well.
And the other piece to that is, when we talk about revenue, it's also important to talk about profit. It's how much do you get to keep at the end of the day? Because we know some practices that are bringing in $750,000, but are keeping, they have to work there to keep the practice open, so this
Right.
is really important. It's not just the revenue number, it's how much you get to keep at the end of the day too.
Yeah,
So,
Casey, I've talked to 2 people in the last month who had a revenue over $1 million and were losing money. So it's a good example. So just having the revenue doesn't mean it's working.
Exactly. And then this is another piece. I wrote the CEO book, and there really are 6 roles of the therapy business, especially the group practice owner. And that is visionary, finance, operations, marketing, clinician, and mentoring. And those 6 roles are critical that we need to make sure that we're doing. And as you say, we're better at some than others. So my thing has always been, let's figure out which role is sleeping and figure out how to wake it up. Do you really need to get a better handle on your metrics and your finances? Is the operations of the business a little bit wonky, and that maybe you're not answering the phone as quickly as you could and you're losing potential clients? So there's all kinds of things here that we know that we're not all aces at all of them, but we need to figure out where we have the quickest path to growth.
Yeah, and I think along with that, Casey, is admitting what you need help with and what you're not good at or what you should delegate. One of the biggest challenges I've seen in group practice is the owner being a control freak and wanting to think, I can do everything better than anybody else. And I used to have that same problem. Of all the things, my practice is insurance-based, and I was afraid to let anybody do the billing. I'm like the world's worst biller. I would make errors. I would put it off for 3 months just because I hated doing it, and then I'd get, half of them would get rejected. and I finally, waved the white flag, and now the person who took it over is like, loves doing it and is fantastic at it. But I've seen that in so many people. We're afraid to delegate. We're afraid to let go of control, and that's going to definitely limit how successful you can be. And the reality is, the more successful you are, the more help you need, the more people you need to help you. And that's really true. So, admit it. There's things you're not going to be good at in this list, on the 10 things or the 6 parts of the CEO that Casey just talked about. And rather than just trying to improve that on your own, learn how to delegate it to other people. And you'll find other people are very good and enjoy doing those tasks.
Yeah, it to me is amazing how much we want to hold on to it, because sometimes our group practice is like our baby, right? We birthed this and we want to hold on. But just like a child, if you hold on too tightly, they're never going to grow. So this is really important that we allow ourselves, and we want to spend time on income producing activities. That said, it's real important to be careful that you don't look as just being a clinician as your income producing activity. So Joe and I are sitting here while we're on this webinar. Our center phones are ringing, people are getting scheduled, new clients are coming in while we're here. If we chose not to do this webinar and see one client, we might be hurting that. If we did that, do you know what I'm trying to say? This isn't coming out really well. You want to take it from here.
Yeah. Well, this is, again, leveraging your time, leveraging your income, and making money and serving the community while you're not doing therapy. And that's really what it's about.
Right. So that's why we want to make sure that those other roles are as active and as your clinician role. And that's one of the biggest areas that we see. A lot of people say, I don't have time, and that they don't have time because they're being a clinician. They're not spending the time mentoring, managing, marketing.
Yeah, and you have to work on the business, not in it. And that ratio has to shift over time, and more on the business and less in it. But again, it all ties together. If you don't have the right compensation model, you can't afford to do that. Casey, a few people asking questions, but I'm going to say we'll answer your questions at the end.
Yeah, put the questions in, because we're gathering them.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to get to as many as we possibly can before we end. So keep putting those questions in. I love seeing my chat's just flying up. So I love that. Thank you. And you can send them to everybody, or you can just send them to us, as you can see in that chat box. So how can we help, Joe? Let's talk about how we can help. I told you earlier that we do have a program starting that we're going to really be helping group practice owners. But right now, even if you did not come into our program, if you take these 10 steps and implement them, that's the exact recipe for creating your $1 million group practice.
And as we just said, we know from experience how lonely, stressful, and difficult it can be to try to do it on your own. I did that on my own in the late 90s while I had 3 kids under 3 years old, which was probably insane. But I just made a lot of mistakes. I didn't sleep much. I was stressed out. It affected my marriage and relationship with kids. But there's certainly a better way to do it these days, and help is available.
Yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we created this new program that is, where we're going to help you with all 10 of these. And it's going to be with Joe and with me. It's a year-long program. And the reason we're doing a year-long program is because we know, just like with therapy, rarely can somebody come in for their first session and you give them a couple of techniques and they're off and running and marriage is perfect, or they're not depressed anymore, not anxious. What we know is that we need to be constantly getting this information so we can move past our limiting beliefs, so we can find our stuck spots, so we can move in action and not lose traction. And so with this year-long program, we're going to have a lot of support. There's going to be some amazing group coaching with not only Joe and me, but other successful group practice owners. So you can learn what other people are doing. We're also going to have a 2-day live event. And there's also some opportunity to get some individual personal mentoring if there's some stuff that you want to work through or you want to accelerate your learning. So this is called the Advanced Adding Clinicians Program. And it's for existing group practice owners. We're going to be beginning the end of October. So October 30th, I think, is our start date. And again, there's the link. And you don't have to go there now because we're going to tell you about some bonuses. But I'll tell you, this is the program that I wish was around when I was starting. I always design programs that I wish was around when I was starting. And with this, you're going to get Joe's 1,000 years of experience. And the fact that I've done this 4 years ago means that I've made a lot of the new mistakes with what are the things that are going on. We have a paperless office, and there's a lot of interesting things, I think, that can come from my experience. So you have two people at different ends of the spectrum here, and we're coming together to help you. Again, Joe and I both been helping therapists for a long time, and we're delighted that you honored us here today. So if you're thinking you might be interested, you might want to take a look at that. Joe, do you have a thought, comment?
Yeah, I just put the link in the little chat box too, if anybody, it might be easier than typing it in. But yeah, we put our heads together and came up with a program that really addresses all 10 of these areas in a systematic, comprehensive way. And we also built in accountability and support, because we know that's so crucial. It's so easy to get off track or to run into a limiting belief and think that maybe it's not possible for you. So we built in a tremendous amount of support. Actually, on a daily basis, you can get support. You can get intensive feedback in our live event and our monthly calls, and get any question you've ever had answered. Like I said before, if there's a question you have, we've encountered it, and we've had to deal with it in our own group practices, so we can definitely help you with that.
And you also have the opportunity, if you wish, to submit your financials and have my husband Bob, who's a 35-year accountant, do a profit and loss review for you, show you how you might be able to gain some more profit, look at your income to expense ratio, make some suggestions on what you might want to ask your tax accountant, a lot of things that will help you know if you're really making money or not. So, this is another benefit of this program, but we're here to really help you. I like to say double your practice. So, depending on where you are, that's where I would start. And then if doubling your practice isn't quite at the $1 million level, we want to help you take it where you want to go.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people, Casey, double, triple, quadruple in 3 to 5 years. So again, I've seen so many people do that. I know it's realistic and feasible. Someone did ask if this would be appropriate for someone just starting a group practice, Casey.
Yeah.
Let
me answer that in just a moment.
Okay.
But we do have something for you. Okay. If you're just starting out, I'll explain that in a minute. Other people are asking if we help psychiatrists. We help all kinds of therapists. Okay. Doesn't matter. We both work with psychiatrists to build group practices as well. So the mentorships are going to start with a 6-week class where we're going to look at your CEO roles and find out which of your roles might be sleeping and really need to get activated. So that way you'll know the biggest bang for your time in terms of what your next actions are.
And we're going to have monthly group coaching to help you stay motivated and on track to grow your business. And this is where I mentioned there'll be accountability, there'll be support. And we're going to focus on specifically and uniquely what is it about your situation that you most need help with, and we're going to help you, deal with whatever challenges are come your way.
Yeah, and then we're going to have a very active, we expect, online forum, and this is a place where you can type in your questions and get answers probably within 24 hours. Joe, be my guest.
And often sooner, because everybody's going to give answers, not just us, because everybody,
right.
The people that are going to be in here are successful therapists who are running practices. So this is one of the best ways and the most active part of this program, where you can you're dealing with a challenge, something comes up with a staff member, OMG, what do I do? You're freaking out. You post something, and right away you get 10 or 15 responses in a supportive way. And it's a fantastic way to deal with the realities of what hits you every day of the week.
Oh, and it really helps with that loneliness factor.
Right.
And then we want to have a 2-day exciting live event. The location, we're thinking it's going to be in Southern California, but we're not 100% sure yet, but it'll be someplace warm. So, because it's going to be in the winter. So those of you that live in Michigan or some cold place will have the opportunity to go someplace warm. And in that 2 days, for those of you that came to our MIFI conferences, it's not going to be quite like that. It's going to be where we're going to be sitting one-on-one with a smaller group, and we're going to be talking about everybody's individual challenges. And we're going to get support, and we'll be working with each of you in that. And as each of you grow, it helps that somebody else has the same challenges. So it's not going to be just a talking at you. It's going to be a very involved, hands-on kind of event.
Right. And Casey, I've seen such phenomenal growth from these live events that I'm really excited about this, because you're getting feedback, not just from smart, savvy business owners, but smart, savvy business owners who are psychotherapists. So some of the feedback you're going to get may be about, some of your stuck places, some of your limiting beliefs, some of the things that they can see that you're doing or not doing that you may have some blind spots. So it's an incredibly powerful way to make a massive jump and growth in your practice. And then as in the evening, we'll go out and socialize. And my experience again is we could be out having dinner, dancing, doing something fun, and then somebody will say, by the way, what about that guy you hired last week? And it just goes on and on and on, and it's fun to do it, and it really helps the learning.
That's awesome. And for those of you that get up early, maybe we'll go for a walk and we could do the same kind of thing.
No, we do both. We stay up late and get up early. That's what we do.
Okay, good. And I talked about the profit and loss review. This is one of the differentiators besides the online forum that differentiates us from other business coaching is the opportunity to really get in there and learn your numbers and have somebody explain to you what it means and how it works. So you can do it yourself from now on. You don't have to wait for your annual review from your accountant. And then if you want individual coaching, like I said, individual mentoring, I'll be providing that. So we have a couple of levels. You can read about them on that page, the beawealthytherapist.net/AAC page. But if you sign up before the 17th of October, we've got a bunch of bonuses for you. So.
And the first one is a $300 discount off the first payment. I have a video, which I focus a lot of my marketing, as I said, on internet marketing, and I've been using Google AdWords pay-per-click for a long time. So I'm going to have a video, how to build a successful Google AdWords campaign.
That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see that. And then I've got a new video called How to Write Client Attractive Psychology Today listings for your associates. I get a lot of group practice owners that ask me to review them, and there's a simple formula. So I think if we can put that down in a video, and you can do that. Plus we got more bonuses. We keep thinking of stuff daily, but go ahead and apply by the 17th of October to be eligible for those bonuses. Okay. And then we did have some people asking, if you are just starting out, do we have a program for you? We do. We have an additional program that is very similar to this one. Go ahead and apply at that group practice one on AAC for existing group practice owners. And what we will do is we will get in touch with you and talk to you about what your options are for a similar program.
Good.
Okay, good. So I think we wanted to take some questions now, right?
Yeah, Casey, let me, I can read some of these. Can you list the 6 roles that you mentioned of the CEO?
Sure. The first is the visionary. What kind of business do we want? The second is finance. What are our numbers? The third is operations. This is everything from answering the phone to janitorial to getting intake paperwork to people, to how do we do payroll in terms of the process of it. Then we have marketing, clinician, if you're still doing sessions yourself, and then mentoring, which is a big one. A lot of people think I'm going to bring in people into our practice, but I'm bringing in experienced people, so I don't have to tell them anything. And that is the quickest way to make them not work out.
Okay, great. You want to comment? Casey, you look fantastic.
Bless you.
What percentage should you aim to keep as the owner? I usually tell people 15 to 25% is a range that I like to shoot for. I don't know, what do you think?
So what we look at is that's a good number, but it depends on what it entails. So we say your operating expenses ought to be 35 to 50% of your revenue. And then you need money for taxes, you need money for profit, and you need money for paying your people. So there's a bunch of formulas in there, and without going through that whole lecture, we actually have a whole class on this in the program. Without going through the whole thing, I'll go with your number for now. But why not make it more than that, right? If it's possible. And
sure.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. How do you know if your practice is ready for a group practice? What I usually tell people is, you're still getting more referrals than you can handle on your own, and you have an ambition to create more revenue, more profit, and serve more people in the community. I think those are the main criteria that I tell people. I don't know, Casey, if you have anything to add to that.
Well, I think you ought to be tracking your numbers so you know how many calls you're getting and what your conversion percentage is. And so if you are getting 10 calls with a 50% conversion, that means you have 5 extra calls a month. That's probably a good time to bring somebody else in. The other piece to that is, and again, I have a formula for if you've already got people that I told you I created this new formula. If you already have people, how do you know when it's time to bring like a 3rd one, a 5th one, a 10th one on? And that depends. It looks also at the attrition rate, how many people are leaving as well as how many are coming in.
Yeah. Several people are asking, what's the first step in starting group practice? I don't know. Is there one, if you had to think of one thing, what would be the first thing? Would it be tracking your numbers? Would it be, what do you think?
I think that, but I think if you're going to do it, you want to know, are you going to bring in interns or, licensed or pre-licensed? What's your niche and branding? And do you want contractors or employees? Those are the first 3 big decisions that I think you need to make. But I think the biggest thing is, do you want to be the boss? I think that's the biggest thing besides numbers.
Yeah, without maybe knowing what that means.
Right. Good point. It's like being married, right?
Because one of the things is, when you're the boss, people project some authority issues onto you, which can be a little odd when that happens. How long are the monthly calls going to be in your program?
Yeah, they're going to be basically 55 minutes.
Okay.
Joe and I have stayed on longer if we're taking more questions, but that's our commitment.
Will these principles work in Canada?
They have worked everywhere. We've worked with them on 5 continents, including mainland China. The only difference in mainland China was there was a problem with internet marketing. But other than that, the same principles apply. So sometimes the cultural things you want to look at, when I say hire for culture, that becomes really important because different cultures value different things. But yes, we've not found them not to work.
Right. Is it possible to create $1 million group practice if you're cash-based fee-for-service, or does it only work if you're insurance-based? Yes, it's possible.
So I would have asked that the other way around.
Okay. What do you mean?
I would have said, is it possible to have $1 million practice insurance-based?
Oh. Yes, it is. Yeah, both are possible because we know people both that have done it. So yeah, definitely.
Right.
You don't have to. Let's see. Let's see. I already did the Add Clinicians program. Would this Emerald program be helpful as well? Yeah,
this is the next step up. So if you've taken our advanced or our Adding Clinicians class, where you learned the basics of what to do to build your practice, and now you're ready to actually implement it, or you've implemented it and you're running into some stuck spots, this is where you want to come on board, because this is, again, the one that we're talking about right now, the advanced Adding Clinicians, is the next step after Adding Clinicians. Again, if you're new, email me, email Joe, or go, we'll tell you about our program for newer group practitioners. But if you're somebody who has at least one associate and you've taken the Add Clinicians class, this is what you need next.
Right. Someone asked, I have a group practice in one location. I'm thinking of adding a second location. Will your program address this?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. I'm a big fan of multiple locations because it's one of the easiest ways to increase your profit, because all of your overhead and admin costs are already taken care of by the first office. So I think and it helps your branding. It helps you reach hundreds of thousands more people in a short drive to your office. So I'm a big fan of that, and we definitely will be talking about that.
And the other piece to that is knowing your numbers, because if you're not bringing in, you're now going to double your marketing because you're in 2 different areas. So you have to make sure that you have enough money available to do that. Plus, you're going to have some facility space in the new place. So it's a financial decision. It's an emotional decision. Like, can I manage 2 offices? But yeah, it's absolutely possible. You have 4.
I have 3. Yeah, 3.
Okay.
All right. Looks like at the top of the hour. So if any of you have to go to a session, we understand. I want to thank you for your time. And someone asked if we could relist the 10 steps. Everybody, by the way, will get a recording of this webinar tomorrow. As long as you're registered, you'll automatically get an email from Zoom, the software that's hosting this webinar. But would you have a way, Casey, to list all 10 again?
Yeah, I can read them real quick. So the first one is create a clear vision for both your menu of services and your numbers. Number 2, understand the crucial role of branding and niching in creating a successful group practice. Number 3, I call it keep score. Create a CEO dashboard of key metrics that you review on a regular basis, and you take your next actions based on what you learn. 4, engage in consistent, efficient, state-of-the-art marketing so that you remain top of mind to potential clients and referral sources. Number 5, find, hire, and mentor and manage the right people, both clinical people and administrative people. Number 6, develop a compensation model that creates ample profit for the owner. Again, that's the one where we find a lot of people struggling. 7, develop efficient, duplicatable systems to reduce feelings of overwhelm and make managing the practice so much easier. 8, create the proper culture to maintain a happy, emotionally engaged staff. 9, invest in redundancy in people, systems, and technology wherever you can. Backup, backup, backup. Number 10, get support. Don't try to do this alone. Get support from other people that are running a group practice so that you can feel supported and stay on track. And you can, like Virginia Satir said, other people can help you see the back of your own hair.
Okay.
All right. So we have, shoot us an email if you have more questions. Again, if you want to get those bonuses, go ahead and apply by the 17th, and we'll be in touch. Take care, and we wish you amazing success. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye now.